Hey, it's the FinTech Newscast. My name's John, and with me, as always, and we're always lucky to have Steve with us. Welcome to the podcast.
Very lucky. Happy to be here, John. How's it going?
You like that smooth intro this time?
I
It's
love it.
only 300 times, but
Love it.
still messing it up.
Nailed it.
Yeah, yeah. And we are very lucky actually to have someone that knows a lot more about Web3, crypto, blockchain than we ever will. Vanessa Grellet, the co-founder and managing, there we go, managing partner at Arche Capital. Welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah, great to have you. In the news this week, actually today in the Wall Street Journal, an interesting article about a payment method I haven't heard of before, but you probably will hear of coming up called Paze, Paze. Meant to take on the Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal world. As you can imagine, those cost a little bit. They have to give some money to the banks are giving away some money to Apple Pay. In this article, they mentioned they pay Apple 0.15% of the purchase price, which works out to $750 million last year across all of their purchases in 2025. And that's just one of the wallets. So the banks are eager using the same consortium they've used for Zelle, the early warning services,
Yep.
to create this new competitor called Paze. What do you think, Steve? Would you use Paze? Are you solidly in the Google Pay camp?
I mostly use Google Pay right now because I have an Android, but it's interesting because I actually worked on an early warning engagement recently, and I think the issue that consortiums
Oh,
like these have is that there's just way too many cooks in the kitchen. So you have basically all the big banks. We have the Wells Fargo's, and JP Morgan's of the world cooking up a solution. And what I find is that for something like payments, UX and UI, and also a well-defined strategy can actually be super important, but it sort of gets diluted if you again have all these banks in the space. So sort of how we saw that, although, my caveat here is that as we saw how Zelle really took a long time to gain traction and to be a competitor to, Cash App and Venmo, there's actually a potential that Pace could eventually become similarly popular, right? Especially as it seeks to displace or replace some of the transactions that are now being done by Google Pay and Apple Pay. But, I think that it's an interesting play. I don't know that I feel bad about the fact that whenever I use Google Pay or Apple Pay, banks have to pay Apple and Google for the benefit of my
those
my
poor
my
large
my
banks.
transactions.
I mean,
Exactly. Will somebody please think of the banks? But
Jamie
if they
Dimon.
find a way, yeah, exactly. Poor Jamie Dimon. But if they find a way to make it more useful and more economically convenient, maybe I'll go over to Pace. But as of
It
now,
works better.
I just
There's
don't
some
see the value
advantage.
prop. Yeah, I just
Yeah,
don't
you
see
know
the
what?
the
You're
prop in that.
you're not the target audience.
No,
Uh,
it's folks under 40.
No, no. It's people over 44, especially
Oh,
women, are the target. So,
oh,
and get this,
Hmm.
they've used. Guess why they've used Elizabeth Banks and Gabrielle Union to be their spokespeople in their ads. Think
because
about
they're
this
women over
carefully.
44.
Elizabeth Banks, Gabrielle Union.
Oh, Banks and Union? No way.
Yes, banks and credit union. And they're the
Incredible.
target demographic, women over 40.
That is a stroke of genius.
Because the tech savvy or tech friendly people, they know they're going to be kind of committed already to Google or Apple, or
Mm,
they love their Venmo and all that. So they're going to go after people who are unaffiliated first.
unaffiliated. Look at that.
So it's interesting. You be skeptical because yeah, you're not targeted.
It's not for me.
Anything you've invested in similar to this in this world, Vanessa?
Yeah, I think, fintech and payments, if you add on the crypto layer is a super exciting space, with the advent of stablecoins. So we've invested in a similar solution that is called Limited and is basically backed by stablecoins and partners with banks all around the world
Wait, it's called
to
limited.
Limited. Yeah.
Limited. Okay.
And basically, it focuses a lot now on emerging markets, so maybe a different target audience than Paze, but will also be coming to the US. And basically allows you to have bank accounts all over the world, transfer in any currencies, at the speed of light. I don't know if you've done an international bank transaction recently, but the last one I did took 5 days. And for like 3
Wow.
days, we didn't know where the money was between the correspondent banks.
Oh,
So
yeah,
that
a
was,
Swift transaction?
no, it was a wire, a large wire. And so,
Uh-huh.
there needs to be some solutions, some cheaper, faster solution to move money across the world in a compliant way, obviously. And I think, large institutions, and incumbents, it's difficult for them to innovate. And so we need these startups to come in and provide these new solutions. Maybe they'll get acquired by a large bank further down the line. But I think the entrepreneurs and the innovators are able to develop these solutions very quickly. Obviously, now with the advent of AI, development of these solutions is going at the speed of light. So it's a very exciting time.
So we have seen more success actually with the upstarts in the international payment side, right? With a lot of competitors in that area. Less with
Wise. Yeah.
the big guys. Yeah, exactly. Less so with where Google and Apple and the big technology players have kind of used their platform to just add one more thing. I wonder if Paze, even with their huge banks behind them, has a chance against the large tech companies. Do
I
they
think
keep subsuming and taking the new tech ones that you're investing in and quashing them before they can become
we
any kind of threat?
we see that, and it's
Not that
good.
that's bad for you.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's also, there's distribution and there's innovation and execution. So if the large platforms have distribution, and we've seen, the proposed combined merger of Stripe and PayPal, trying to combine consumer and enterprise distribution, there needs to be this layer of innovation and constant innovation with startups that fuel competition, and that keep everyone in check and offer the consumers the best solutions.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Paze, I predict Paze will have a very slow, like Zelle, because everyone's kind of more comfortable, familiar. And this is kind of like the new off-brand, comes with packaged, not very fancy. Like Steve said, not very sexy thing compared to doing it on your cool Apple thing
And I think now
for a long time.
consumers are used to using several channels with different people and different avenues and different means. So I think if it's an additional channel, I think it's good. And if it reaches more people that, as you've said, have not been using these innovative platforms, I think that's an exciting time.
I'm
Yeah,
curious,
yeah.
since you work in the crypto space now, platforms like Google Pay and Wallet seems operated entirely using fiat currency. And since you're in the Web3 space, is there anything being done to sort of facilitate either peer-to-peer or merchant transactions for consumers using crypto?
So I think we'll see the confluence of two things: the emergence of stablecoins as the backbone of these transactions. So the consumer will not see the difference. They think they'll be transacting fiat to fiat, but it will be underneath is the stablecoin, especially in international transaction when you have to take the FX route. And then, banks are going to create tokenized deposits, which allows them also to move money quicker and cheaper, which are the equivalent of stable coins, but they stay within the banking system existing rails. So I think we'll see the development of that accelerate. We've seen the Genius Act enacted last year, and we see all the government agencies really putting out their there are new regulations for comments, etc. So that's a process that's ongoing. But basically, the large banking institutions know really well, whether it's tokenized deposits or stable coins that they will want to develop, and probably they'll develop both. And I think that will really transform the backbone of payments in the future. And so the consumer will not have to know if it's fiat to fiat, fiat to stablecoin, et cetera. They'll know that it's instantaneous and cheaper.
And what would be the benefit of relying on stablecoin infrastructure to do any sort of peer-to-peer transaction?
So it's just the instantaneous
It's just
settlement. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Which actually,
can you do regulatory checks, anti-money laundering, all
absolutely.
that, if it's instantaneous, though?
Yes, because basically, if you own the front end and you own the consumer, you're doing the checks, right? And it's just the back end.
Before it even gets started.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you can do peer-to-peer without checks, through wallets, etc. But if you're working with more institutions, they'll do the KYC, etc.
Interesting. Yeah, it seems like the few times that I've used Zelle, I don't know if this was an issue before where they would warn you basically at every step that make sure this isn't a fraudulent transaction, know who your recipient is, etc. Now they do after this issue, right? But even because it is essentially instantaneous and it goes bank to bank, right? Even now, like landlords will accept Zelle payments, which is great. I know from friends who use it. So yeah, I think I'm all about the instant payments and the instant settlement, and I think that bringing that sort of speed to the foreign market would be, again, a huge boon for all of us. I haven't sent a lot of international wires, but the fact that you could do it quickly now would be, again, a huge boon for the industry.
It's very nerve-wracking because they could get lost very easily.
Yeah.
And it does happen, and you don't know for a few days, like Vanessa was mentioning, where it's at. Or I've had it where it got stuck somewhere and they needed some other number. I think it was a wire to India. And they have their own special code that they need to use as well. So the first time I didn't know that. Yeah, I did, but you have no transparency on it.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't solve,
Can you fix that, Vanessa?
Yes, I will. It doesn't solve any issues around, fraud, people trying to hack, your accounts, and people sending you fake emails, etc. Obviously, and that's gonna remain. And there's always ways to reverse the transactions. And I think, if you're interfacing with a bank or a regulated entity, that can give you more comfort that can be done.
Now, instead of grandpa thinking he's sending money to a girlfriend in, I don't know, Estonia or Cambodia or somewhere, now we have to watch out for him sending money to an AI bot.
Correct.
Instead. So there's always that's always going to be a problem.
Yeah. So I understand that you actually you began your career in a more in the more traditional finance space. I think you worked at the New York Stock Exchange, PwC, etc. What was sort of the catalyst for your forming Arche Capital?
So I discovered crypto pretty early on, back in 2013. Wow. I was then one of the first employees at Consensus back in 2016, where I stayed there for 5 years. When I was in traditional finance, I was working on public M&A and investments. And after I left Consensus, I kind of went back to the investment side of things and wanted really to focus on early stage and helping entrepreneurs really at the earliest stages, because I kind of had seen this and how it was done at Consensus, and really thought, the 0 to 1 period is the most critical and where I could be helpful. So with Will Wolf, we created Arche Capital with that focus, really on partnering with early entrepreneurs and helping them grow and find product market fit, and really now where we are in crypto is it's a lot about distribution. It's about a lot about go to market, which was less the case, I would say, a few years ago, where people were really focusing on the hard issues on the tech side. But so it's still a very exciting time to be in crypto. I know everyone wants to do AI, but I still think, there's tons of opportunities.
Yeah, apparently not everything's been solved yet in crypto. So
Yes.
yeah, I think there's a little bit. So what is the latest in tokenization? Which real world assets are starting to take off, you think?
So, I mean, we've seen, full disclosure, we're investors in Securitize, which is one of the largest tokenization
An amazing company.
which just SPACed recently, and basically tokenization has been the idea of tokenization of real world assets and stablecoins has been there since the beginning. Back in 2016, we were talking about it. There were already projects, and actually, that's probably when Securitize started. And it's been a very long road to get there because of all the regulatory constraints that you have in tokenizing real world assets, including securities, because I would say that one of the best product market fit for tokenization is the already existing very large liquid assets, whether you tokenize funds or you tokenize stocks or you tokenize bonds.
The SEC is
Liquid.
famously unforgiving. So yeah, that makes
So
a lot of sense.
these large liquid assets are the perfect fit for tokenization. Not saying there won't be other more liquid assets that will be tokenized further down the line, but I think we need to really go into that transformation of the back office of the securities and the custody of these assets and the representation of these assets onto the blockchain in order to have, like for payments, faster, cheaper, 24/7 transactions that allow you to do much more with your assets and have productive assets, being able to use them into DeFi, etc. So we're still, I know we always say that we're still at the beginning. If you look at the numbers, 300 billion is nothing compared to, the financial markets. So, what's exciting is to see that the SEC is taking a very active role. DTCC is doing incredible things with treasuries and their markets. So we see the beginning of the transformation of the entire value chain to go on chain and to allow for tokenization of all assets in the future. But I think it will take time. I see this as a 15 years transformation where we have a digital representation, like we had, going from paper stock into digital stock, and then digital stock into tokenized stock, and then probably in the future natively issued securities on the blockchain. So it's possible that we stay for a long time in the tokenized stocks, or we jump very quickly into the natively issued securities. But for all that, there's a lot of regulation and legal minutiae that needs to be solved. And also think about the back end infrastructure for brokerage, settlement, and custody and clearing that needs to be resolved before we get into real mainstream.
Yeah, how much of it is the systems being able to handle, like you were saying, the huge volumes? I was just looking at what the fixed income is around 156 trillion. Global foreign exchange is around 9.6 trillion daily. Swaps are around 4 trillion per day. And then I see someone, oh, we have $2 billion. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, not really.
Exactly.
It's more like a few minutes of trade.
Yeah, and that's
in a day.
why.
So can the system handle that kind of scaling?
And I think that's why it took so long, because if the idea was there, 10 years ago, there was no way the current protocols could handle it. And now what's exciting is that we see different protocols and different solutions come to market. I think Ondo just, it's not related exactly to RWA, but they launched a new version of their chain, and so they wanna be as fast as traditional markets, et cetera. So, each month there's a new innovation that strengthens these protocols and these solutions in order to move on chain and in order to move, as you've said, massively on chain and have these protocol be able to sustain that amount. So you can think of, if you think of high frequency trading and the speed at which that happens, there's no way right now any blockchain, comes even close. So there's ways of
There's no fat on those HFT
so there's there's ways
algorithms.
to decouple, maybe the matching and the settlement, et cetera. So we'll continue to innovate and find solutions in order to bring those financial markets on chain.
And the other half you were saying is the regulatory side. Just any thoughts you have, any opinion you might have on the Clarity Act? And looks like it probably won't pass this year. Any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, I feel like the situation is in flux for the passing of the Clarity Act this year. I think it's a really necessary bill. We really need to have the Clarity Act. Obviously, if it doesn't passes, the SEC and the CFTC can definitely create the frameworks that are necessary. But I think having the Clarity Act, like what we've seen for the Genius Acts, really, puts the US as the leader in the space. It has the largest financial markets. It has fallen behind in terms of regulatory framework, or at least giving the comfort to large institutions that they can move forward with their projects. And I've come to realize how much we've fallen behind just writing the book, because I was, really looking at the evolution of the space for the last 10 years. And so much has moved offshore because the US government was so aggressive with crypto. And you look back and you're like, why? Why are you trying to really bring down innovation in the US? It's kind of surprising. And so I think the Clarity Act, if it passes this year, it would be fantastic.
What about the Clarity Act is helpful?
So it gives a lot of, basically, it gives the framework for the regulation of crypto between the CFTC and the SEC. I think one souring point was, is this token a security? Is it a commodity? There's a clear framework now for developers and innovators to know, in which category they lie. And then it gives a lot of power to the CFTC to regulate a lot of the intermediaries that are going to be involved in crypto. For example, Coinbase never, should it have registered as a regular exchange, or was it different? So now we have a comprehensive framework.
At least good or bad, at least make a decision. That's the main thing.
Exactly.
Big one. Yeah. Big one.
And then there's a really comprehensive framework around KYC and AML, which obviously was a sticking point for all these networks, and determines who needs to perform KYC or not, what is a protocol and who can use it. It also gives some framework for DeFi. Recently, the SEC put out a document around DeFi vaults. So they're thinking deeply about all these things, and I think having the Clarity Act would be such a great signal that the US is and continues to be the leader in digital assets, and is going to basically provide the framework that a lot of other nations will want to follow. I mean, we've seen that that movie before, I would say that usually a lot of like other jurisdictions will want to mirror some of the U.S. regulation. We've seen the U.K. and the U.S. recently make a joint statement about how they were going to embrace
Aligned a little
regulation,
bit?
align a little
Uh-huh.
bit.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. And I think, leaving enough room also for innovation is still important. I think we've seen in Europe that the MiCA regime is quite restrictive. A lot of the companies which were in crypto were not able to get their license, and so are no longer able to operate in Europe, and so that kind of limits the pool of innovation and talent and solutions for others.
What do
How,
you say to the sorry, John, just a quick follow up.
yep, yep.
What do you say to the criticism that essentially by regulating crypto as a commodity and not as a security, and moving again the regulation from the SEC to the CFTC, you're going to an agency that's far less equipped from an enforcement perspective to actually be able to go after the bad actors in the space. So, do you think that going again to the CFTC and not the SEC is sort of opening up the space to more bad actors and less enforcement? Or is there a different way to think about which entity is actually going to regulate the industry?
I think that's inaccurate. I think the bad actors will get regulated in any case, or will go after, whether it's fraud or market manipulation, etc. The CFTC is totally equipped to do that. I think what it avoids is unwarranted requalification or trying to fit something in a legal framework around securities that has dragged the entire industry down because the SEC was going after really legitimate players who were just trying to make a business when there was no regulation, and the SEC was saying, well, there is a general framework and I'm going to put you into this general framework. And I think we need to, that general framework still exists, but now there's an alternative explanation for how to operate digital assets. And I think that's a positive.
So the good and the bad got lumped in together, you're saying?
Yeah.
Sort of.
Sort of, yeah. You mentioned MiCA as well, which is over in the EU, and I'm curious, is crypto treated as a commodity or as a security in the EU framework?
So they have a little bit of a similar framework. I think they're just a little bit more stringent on the requirements for stablecoin issuers and people who operate exchanges or broker-dealers, etc., in terms of their requirements.
Got it. And do you find that because of again the regulatory uncertainty that the US is sort of losing its place as one of the hubs for Web3 and or is the US market still too big to ignore? Do companies basically have to play within the space with whatever rules we have because again it's such a huge market?
So when we were raising for our fund, the Genius Act was not enacted yet, and we said, okay, we're only going to invest in the US. We think that's where the best talent is. No disrespect to other jurisdictions.
Thank you.
And we think that's also the leading market and where the best infrastructure is and the best talent is. And I still think that's true regardless of the regulation. And I was saying crypto has already won, and it's survived, the past 15 years with everything running up against crypto. And, if there's just a little bit of change in the regulation, that's amazing and that's a plus. But the technology is superior, and superior technology will replace the legacy technology, regardless, eventually, regardless of the environment. Look at Uber, look at a lot of like the innovation. They also had to battle a lot of the regulatory uncertainty, and they're still winning. right? So it does take time. It's better if we have a regulatory framework. If we don't, we'll manage. And I think the US has by far the largest capital markets. Now we see all the institutions who are hiring like crazy for their digital assets, departments, trying to develop custody solutions, brokerage solutions, payment solutions, tokenization solutions. It's quite extraordinary, and they've been at it for a very long time. So back in 2017, we created the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, which I'm still on the board of. We did the opening ceremony and the launch at the JP Morgan offices. Right? JP Morgan, BNY Mellon, Fidelity, everyone was there. Everyone understood the power of this technology, but they couldn't do anything about it. Basically, so they started creating private blockchains, and that failed. But they were at it, and they understood that this could be the future. They just didn't have the means to, deploy this at scale without a regulatory regime available,
By
right?
2025, everything will run on blockchain. I promise you. It has taken longer.
It did.
You often mention here that I've kind of lost my patience or like hope a lot. I read a lot of the Ethereum Foundation projects, and they look so interesting, so
Yeah.
useful,
Smart contracts and everything.
and it's just
seems to be a thing.
just a hair longer
Yes.
than
Yes.
we thought. But so you're looking at companies that are building solutions that are addressing pain points in the existing system. I always like to ask people who are meeting with investors, any red flags or green flags when you meet people or you're getting a pitch,
Entrepreneurs? Yeah. So I think,
or
crypto,
entrepreneurs?
crypto has, sometimes a bad rap. And so you do need to be mindful of the entrepreneurs and their integrity and their capacity to really understand the problems that they're solving for, and their capacity to deliver that. So, I would say those are the three red or green flags that we're watching out for. A lot of integrity, capacity to build a team, capacity to build product, find product market fit, and deliver at scale. It's very hard, 99% of
To
the
find all
companies
of
will
those
fail,
together.
and
Yeah.
99% of those companies will fail, right? So, it is the power law, and you need to be mindful. There's a great criteria when we have like second-time entrepreneurs that have already, kind of exited a good business before, things like that. But it's all about the people.
I'm
So
curious. Is there any bet that you've taken recently that will make you look or seem contrarian now, but that you're convinced will pay off in 5 years?
that's what I was going to ask.
That's a good question. So we did take a few bets in DeFi, and I don't think DeFi is exciting to a lot of people right now. And we did, my business partner did take a bet in AI back in 2019. So I can't claim that, but it has been very successful.
Right.
But again, I think it was all about the entrepreneurs and their vision and their willingness to challenge the status quo.
You also you operate in a space with three very much hyped techs, right? You have AI on one side, you have BFSI or financial services, and then you have blockchain. How do you sort of differentiate the hype and what's hot right now versus what you think could have a significant impact on either industry 5 or 10 years from now? Because I understand that your whole thesis is that you're looking at strategic bets in this space. You're not looking for a quick, investment, make a buck and get out. You want to actually change the landscape. So again, how do you think of long-term impact in your investments?
So our investment thesis has always been the intersection of blockchain and financial services. Um, so blockchain and fintech for us was a really natural fit, and we've seen that with the development of stablecoins. I would say stablecoin infrastructure deals have performed pretty well. I think blockchain and AI and decentralized AI is another interesting area for us. But it's a little bit like, privacy and the internet. Some people care, some people don't. Do you care about decentralized AI? And where are we able to deliver decentralized AI solutions that are on par with centralized AI? So that's the main challenge here. You may not want to focus on, or you may want to focus on people who are very opinionated about these issues, but they also need to be able to deliver on par with other existing solutions. It's a little bit like the privacy narrative, which we're very interested in, and we've made a few bets on. We think that's key also for crypto to become mainstream. There's no way an institution is going to just trade on public markets with all the information being available to anyone. So there needs to be some privacy solutions that are embedded within the protocols and the stablecoins and the wallets that allow for private transactions while still being compliant and being able to, not completely shield the information or the origin of the transaction.
I assume you have a pretty strong BS detector, right? So you can tell who's BSing you, who's not. Because
I
your
Well,
hope.
background
she's
now,
on here, Steve, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I
maybe
think
not. Yeah.
the antennas for and the red flags are on all the time.
Any good anecdotes, by the way? Somebody that came in, you were like, "This is ridiculous," or "This is," or
Yeah.
you're so impressed, or one way or the other. There's some interesting.
Yeah, I think this company limited that we invested in, the founder is a second-time founder and already had grown another neobank in a very significant way, and wanted to do the same thing in crypto. And I have to say, we were so impressed. From our first call to the call we had with him 2 weeks ago. It's unbelievable to see the drive and the grit of some entrepreneurs and their capacity to pivot, which is, I think,
Yeah, that's always very interesting.
the
Yeah,
trait that also we're looking for, because if they're dedicated, they'll find a way to, and they'll find solutions if, the first thesis doesn't work. And this is what happened with them. And I'm still very impressed.
good, good. Well, we talked about Paze and people getting used to it, and just really a lot of the marketing power that's behind Apple and Google that's gonna to keep people locked in. Do you think a lot of these new solutions, even if they're in the back end, will need like a similar marketing push to get people comfortable, like a brand names that they can, like they used to say, "Oh, you never go wrong buying IBM or something,
Yeah, I
or
think
you
it
never get fired."
depends. Yeah, of course. I think, it depends if you're a B2B, B2C, B2B2C solution. And I think that requires very different strategies and marketing pushes. I think B2B has been a very successful way to function. I think now with AI and leveraging AI on your sales channel and your marketing, you're able to achieve so much more compared to probably the other um, previous previous iterations of some of the companies. So we've seen, there's a deck of one company where we have the CEO, the CMO or the CPO, and then the 200, agents team. that is basically doing a lot of work on the back end, et cetera. So we've seen an acceleration of a lot of these marketing channels and go-to-market execution channels with AI. So I think that's pretty exciting.
So how much has the AI changed your expectations of like how much you budget for people? Maybe a lot of work can be done through AI now, and we don't need as many engineers or different kind of engineers, maybe. Does it change the
So
calculation?
we've seen a compression of the hiring,
Hmm.
and basically some of the startups just need a few more senior developers that can leverage AI. So it is getting maybe a little bit more difficult for more junior developers to get hired into these startups. But I think you can just do more with less. It doesn't mean that you're not, and it means that you're progressing faster, right?
Mhm.
So overall, I think it's a good thing. I think we had a call maybe a year and a half ago with our portfolio companies and trying to survey them on how much they're leveraging AI and how they're doing it, and kind of sharing best practices. And I think that has accelerated a lot of the projects that are able to really leverage AI to the maximum. I mean, it has a
Sure.
cost. So, you're not hiring engineering, but you're paying your Claude, your Claude bill.
So many tokens.
Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
tokens.
Yeah. So what's the next step for Arch Capital? You guys raised funds, was it last year
Yeah.
or finished last year?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it was first, you're still germinating. So
Yes.
what's the next step to making Web3 happen?
So we're still deploying. The question is, where is the maturity of the market right now? We've seen a lot of like IPOs come to fruition last year's, and DATs into which we were involved, and so and we see a lot of M&A across our portfolio and others. So the question is, how much focus do we want to continue to have on early stage, or do we want to be on the later stage of crypto, and where is our added value to the entrepreneurs? So we're thinking about that.
Are you like, I wish I just had like billions more because there's so many opportunities? Or is it just really hard work filtering to just get the diamonds in the rough?
So the question is, where is the next wave of innovation for crypto? And how much is their capture with large institutions and larger companies compared to earlier stages startups?
Well, we wish you all the best. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Exciting times.
Yeah, thank you. I hope all of your investments come back 1,000x.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah. That's Vanessa Grellet, the co-founder and managing partner at Arche Capital. Please hit subscribe to keep up with the latest in fintech news, and thank you for listening.